Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Saturday night coverage of the WSSR Roasted Gems Cup Series. It's Season 6, the second to last race of the that of the playoffs to see who is winning a championship this season. Season 6 has brought in a lot of ups, a lot of downs, and our next destination tonight is at Atlanta. For these drivers, it is that of the Military Appreciation 225. Due to the fact that this weekend is Memorial Day weekend, big thanks to all of our veterans that have served. This weekend is all about remembering those that have served to us to have the freedom to do what we do here tonight. Giving you the coverage of great racing, and big shout out to all the drivers that have been veterans as well. I know we got a lot of iRacing drivers that have been veterans that have served, and tonight we get to honor you with a great race that is here at Atlanta. 150 laps. It's all on the line, and cannot wait to give you all the coverage here on Freaky Fast Broadcasting. My name is Sam Dyer. Joining me is Trevor Earhart. And Trevor, we've talked about the points, the playoffs. It's 5 races, all about who gets the most points at the end of the day. We got 5 drivers, all within 10 points of one another, meaning it's still wide open on who's going to win the championship.
It's still very well wide open. I mean, Larry's currently leading the points. He's got a 3-point gap to Brian Johnson. Zach Hall, who looked like the favorite coming into the playoffs, 5 points back. Tom Sinchek 7, and then Brandon Cawley just sitting there at 10 points back. I mean, it's all up for grabs here tonight at Atlanta, and then next week for the championship finale at Homestead. But first, Sam, we got to get through Atlanta, and this isn't the new Super Speedway version. This is the 2008 version, the one that's tough on tires, and I think we're going to be in for one heck of a show tonight. These guys are going to be slipping and sliding all around this racetrack.
And that has been a worry over this whole entire week. Drivers have been trying to find out ways to practice at this course, and I'm always just hearing rumblings of this car is loose. It is mad. It does not feel comfortable on this track, which for some, maybe they hear that and they think this is going to be an awful race for these drivers. But Trevor, as a driver yourself, I would say that makes drivers feel very excited when a vehicle is this loose on especially old Atlanta, a track that drivers love so much.
Yeah, it makes it a lot more enjoyable, I would say, to drive a very loose race car. It makes it more driver oriented. Really got to play with the throttle to get runs, to generate runs and make passes. So it's going to come down to a lot of driver skill with how loose these race cars have looked in practice to get passes done and to be consistent lap in and lap out. So we'll have to wait and see how it's going to play out for these guys, but they are going to have their hands full for the whole 150 laps.
Drivers in red on our ticker board are those that are finding themselves in the playoffs and they're still running for a championship. Currently, right now, Brian P. Johnson stealing the top of the board with the pole award over Tom Sinchek and that of Brandon Cawley with a 31.203 lap time. And other drivers, we know that could be quick. That's Larry Yingling, but he's going to come up shy. As we look at the 38 machine of Christopher Norris, his time clocks in 12th fastest after his 2 laps are finished. As it looks like we got 4 drivers still sitting in pit road, but not showing any signs of getting their laps in. But here's one of the last drivers to get a lap in for qualifying. It's Martin Morales in the 91, hoping for a solid finish for the 91 machine as he goes through that of turns 3 and 4.
Yeah, his first lap in already with a 32.9, so the slowest of all the qualifiers on his first lap. We'll have to see how much he can pick up here on the second lap. Looked pretty stable there through 3 and 4 as he crosses the line for his last lap. Picks it up to a 31.45, but still only going to be good enough for 14th quickest in that 91 machine.
I gotta say, surprising to see how close these drivers are. Top that of 5, all within 1/10th of one another. The whole entire rest of the field, all within 0.2 of one another. So this is going to be a lot of drivers on top of each other, protecting those tires, protecting their speed. As qualifying is done, it gives us time to give some shout outs to our amazing sponsors here at the WSSR Cup Series. Starting things off with Roasted Gems Coffee. Roasted Gems Coffee has been the head sponsor of WSSR for the past 3 seasons and officially announced today Roasted Gems is coming back for another season. They'll be right back here for season 7 of the WSSR Cup Series as they're moving to Wednesday nights next season in July. But if you'd like to go get your premium coffee today, go head over to roastedgems.com to go get your premium coffee. Remember to use the promo code WSSR WSSR for 5% off. As well, big thanks to Trophy Smack. Trophy Smack, if you want to be the envy of your competition, well, head on over to TrophySmack.com, grab yourself a trophy, fantasy football, fantasy sports, and as well, sim racing. Get your custom trophies. If you want championship belt, rings, or more, head over to TrophySmack.com and use the promo code WSSR Cup. That's WSSR CUP. At purchases, anything you purchase, 10% off at Trophy Smack. As the drivers have gotten qualifying finished, they're starting to grid up. It's time for us to take a look at our Collie's Mom's grid spots here this evening. As taking the pole award, it's going to be the 28 of Brian P. Johnson in the Trophy Smack machine. To his outside, going to be Tom Sinchek in second. Brandon Colley coming up 2 positions shy. The disappointment continues to reign as the one hopes to be proud and helping out and support. Going to be seeing Colley's mom in chat throughout the night. Larry England going to be in 4th. Zach Hall 5th. 6 positions going to be Aaron Kralik. 7th, Cedric Hunter. 8th is going to be Ryan Bird. Jonathan Cogswell in 9th. And finishing out our top 10, it's Jeff Gilmore.
Richard Wilselfer will roll off in 11th. Christopher Norris in 12th. Rich Jameson in 13th with Martin Morales in 14th. Bob Skinner in 15th. James Kaufman in 16th. And James Hackworth Jr. and Kyle Rochelle will round out our 18 drivers here tonight.
I'll also note for Kyle Rochelle, still waiting for him to get into the session, might be missing and starting out in pit road for that of the 21, but the rest of the field still here, 17 drivers. And Trevor here at Atlanta, configuration that no longer in real life the drivers get to run, but in virtual racing on iRacing. Cannot wait to see how this track is going to serve these drivers. What is going to be the big factors to watch out though for this evening?
I think you're going to have to watch out for the looseness that you're going to have out of especially turn number 2. It's going to be a dangerous spot all night with these cars unloading, getting onto the backstretch. We might see a couple of spins there. And in tire wear, I mean, with how old this race surface is and how abrasive it is on tires, these drivers are really going to have to save the tire, especially the right front. But I think more importantly, it's going to be that right rear tire, keeping as much heat out of it as you can to mitigate that loose sensation.
Loose sensation certainly has been the talking point for practice, but how will these drivers attack this evening? It's that penultimate race of the whole entire season, and the playoffs about to come to a conclusion. We've got to see 3 incredible playoff races where Larry Yingling won the first 2, Brian P. Johnson won the last one, but tonight, who could steal it away and try to challenge that of the 67, who's got the points lead currently? Again, tonight's race is going to be 150 laps, no stage break. There will be no fast repairs with 4 extra sets of tires in pit road. We'll talk about the fuel strategy thoughts later on because it's time for us to get to green flag racing as the drivers enters turns 3 and 4. It's Brian P. Johnson, Tom Sinchek, Brandon Colley, as well as Larry Yingling going to be your top 4. Zach Hall settling in 5th place, needing a massive day for the 42 to rebound after the disappointment the last 3 weeks. But the pace car is off. It's time for the Military Appreciation 225 here at Atlanta. We are green with the 8 machine, the 28 side by side, heading down into turn number 1.
Down in turn number 1 they go. Brian Johnson clear of the 8 of Tom Sinchek. It's going to be that battle for second between Brandon Colley, Tom Sinchek. That's the side-by-side right now. A little bit of a wheel from the 8 of Sinchek, and that's going to allow the 67 of Larry Yingling to get to his inside. But up front, Brandon Colley instantly to the inside of the 28 of Brian Johnson. He's looking for the lead down in turn number 3.
Qualifying position may not have been there for the 1, but he's going to be trying to gas it up. Gets a little bit too tight in the center of 3 and 4, giving opportunities for Larry Yingling to get into the mix. But he exited turn 4. It's Brian Johnson across the line, leads lap number 1. That's a bonus point for the 28. There's 3 ways to get bonus points: leading the lap, leading the most laps, and winning the race. All 3 of those, just 1 point apiece. Brian Johnson has a massive point for himself, trying to close in the gap, but behind them issues as it's the 28 and others scattering off of turn number 2.
Looks like the 38 of Christopher Norris involved in that, 27 of Cogswell involved, and might have been one of those things, Sam, just a car getting loose out of turn number 2, the spot we kind of touched on right there in the pre-race. We'll have to see if we can get the replay pulled up, but Cogswell and Norris, early contact for the both of them, and Cogswell had to take a tow.
27, Jonathan Cogswell, the major driver, caught up in this one. The driver is dealing with scrapes, so you see loose out of turn 2, comes back across the line, and slams into 38, who has nowhere to go. And Jonathan Cogswell immediately going to take the toe to pit road. But required damage for that of Jonathan Cogswell. And behind them, the 25, James Kaufman, found himself slipping and trying to get it on the brakes, slow down too much, and slam the outside wall as well. Got required damage. You're going to be seeing here for the 25. Comes out of the corner. He does the same exact thing. He gets loose, overcorrects, and hard contact from the 25 as you see bits and pieces shattering from the 27.
Yeah, just unfortunate there for Kaufman. Didn't do anything wrong. Just a little bit of got a little loose there, tried to get on the brakes to avoid the incident, and shot back up into the outside wall. And two cars, 2 laps into the race, Sam required damage, and this already fairly small field going to be even smaller. So points for our playoff drivers, especially the top 5, definitely going to be important. Bonus points for leading the most lap and getting that win, going to be big for those guys tonight.
And as well, going to be seeing some drivers coming into pit road just to get a splash of fuel. Others getting repairs. Christopher Norris getting repairs. Cogswell, again, required damage, as well as Kaufman. And other drivers just coming in, topping off on fuel. Going to be Rich Jamison with Christopher Norris getting the repairs. And James Hackworth Jr. doing a drive-through under yellow, trying to get himself to the tail end of the field. But certainly, Trevor, the looseness, we touched on it a lot before we even went green. It struck immediately. And now with the fact that these drivers are dealing with tires that only got to go green for 2 laps, I mean, this doesn't seem like the tires are going to get any more into a comfortable zone on this next restart.
No, I think they're going to be okay. Typically with this low profile tire, the first couple laps fairly loose because they don't have any heat in them. Then you're good for about 10-15 laps. Then you get too much heat in them as you get really loose. But putting on a heat cycle here, maybe it'll help with the grip levels. But I would think that in the next, especially on the restart and the next 10 laps after that is probably when we'll start seeing that loose sensation kick in again. We'll have to wait and see. I mean, 2 laps in, it could be one of those things that just happens all night long. We'll just have to wait and see what's going to happen.
As saw a driver pull into pit road, that was going to be James Hackworth Jr. He was going to top off on fuel and head to the tail end of the line. But up front, going to be Brian Johnson, Brandon Colley, Tom Sinchek, Larry Yingling, and Aaron Kralik going to be your front runners in the top 5. Losing a few positions of the drivers that were inside our top 10. Going to be Zach Hall down 2 spots. Biggest mover, though, Bob Skinner back in 11th place, already up 4 spots with all the drivers that were caught up in that incident.
Good start there from Bob. Avoided, I think he was right behind Christopher Norris, and Cogswell got through that wreck pretty clean, got himself a couple of positions just outside the top 10. But I'm curious, when Zach Hall losing 2 spots already, not what he needs to do if he wants to get some of these points, Sam, and try to get back into this playoff picture.
I think the big thing also for the 42 is the fact that he's not running for stage position. There's no stage points in this race. It's all about how you finish at the end, but you do want to at least lead a lap. And like we said, watch out for the 42 on losing those positions. Could be crucial. The base car is off. Let's get back to green flag action. It's Brian Johnson. A fabulous launch for the 28.
Yeah, great start there. Chose the outside line. A little bit interesting call, but had a great restart there. It's going to leave Brandon Colley, Tom Sinchek that are going to be side by side in turn number 1 with Larry Yingling right there. I think Tom's going to have that preferred line through 3 and 4, but Brandon Colley's going to be able to clear him here through 1 and 2. Now it's going to leave the 67 of Larry Yingling on the inside line through 3 and 4, but Larry's going to drop back behind the 8. Actually, he's going to look to the inside now of the 8 of Tom Sinchek and see if he can get this pass for 3rd down.
Slight wiggles on the exit of turn 2. We'll see them here on the exit of turn 4. And side by side for that, a 3rd place. Tom Sinchek holds the position in the late Apex machine. Has his sights moving forward. Larry Yingling now going to be up to the outside groove and might be losing another spot as here comes another lead Apex driver. That's Ryan Bird in the 49, trying to make his way forward. Ryan Bird, been a great season for the 49, showing a lot of speed. It's been the finishes and consistency at the tail end of these races. This is looking like traditional 49 racing. Get up front and challenge these front runners.
Yeah, he's been up front pretty much all season long. He's been caught up in some incidents throughout the season that's taken him out of having those good finishes. But right now, watching his teammate under pressure from the 67 of Larry Yingling, who got a great run down the front straightaway, went to the outside of Tom Sinchek. And I think this is going to be the spot where you want to make these passes. Is going to be on this outside as you keep the momentum up in these cars, and makes it look really easy getting around Tom through out of turn number 2, heading down the back straightaway.
The report officially has been removed. That's Jonathan Cogswell that has called it a night. We're down to just 16 drivers out there on track. all 16 on the lead lap. And looking at the leaderboard, starting to see some movement, drivers that are on the move. Big one being Ryan Bird, but our biggest mover of the race right now, it's the driver in 6th position. It's Richard Wolsifer trying to make his patriotic scheme moving forward up 5 spots for himself. And then behind him, the biggest losers, it's going to be that of Aaron Krolick and Zach Hall, both down 3 positions.
And Zach just got around Aaron Krolick right there for 9th position. Now going to try to close in on Cedric Hunter, but right in front of them, Wolsifer continuing his march forward as he's going to look to the inside here of the 49 of Ryan Bird down the front straightaway. And this 56 car, Sam, looking pretty fast here early on in this race as he's going to get this pass done in turn number 1.
Richard Wolsifer is a driver that's been trying to evolve, get better at iRacing, and with this pass up to 5th, now up 6 positions for himself as we're looking back from the 56 to the 49 of Ryan Bird. But Richard Wolsifer, like I said, a driver that has been learning and growing, and it's been a pleasure to watch him grow as a driver. But it's been a struggle, though. Again, kind of similar to the 49. Finishes have been the biggest woes. A lot of computer issues in the first half of the season that really took away opportunities for Richard Wolsifer to run for a championship. But here tonight, really well in 5th spot. But as we look back deeper in the field, this driver we haven't seen for a while, it's Jeff Gilmore running back, battling for 10th place.
Yeah, Gilmore, nice to see, or good to see Jeff back here on Saturday nights and having a nice quiet run so far early in this race. Right where he started, I believe, here in 11th as he tries to close in on Aaron Krolick for that 10th place position, and not too far in front of him, Zach also potential to pick up 2 spots here if he can get around this 01 machine, but right now just tucked right in behind, right on that rear bumper of Aaron Krolick right in front of him.
Last time we saw Jeff Gilmore was back in April when he was racing at Talladega, and we got to see that of the 57 trying to go for a top 10 run, but it fell short, caught up in some big wrecks. Here tonight, trying to go for one of his best finishes of the season. His best was back at North Wilkesboro, an 11th place finish. Here tonight, for these drivers in 9th position, Aaron Krolick looks to be willing to give up positions. This is kind of interesting to see here, Trevor, because these drivers deeper in the field, Zach Hall, Aaron Krolick, they continue to give up positions.
Oh, Gilmore a little bit loose. Aaron a little bit loose out of turn number 2. They both hang on to it. Aaron's going to go for an aggressive side draft down into turn number 3. Gilmore kind of gives it right back to him. He's going to keep that 10th place position there from Aaron Krolick. Or I'm sorry, get 9th place position there from Aaron. But, I mean, could be a tire save move from Zach and Aaron, but with that big slide from Aaron, maybe being a little bit too aggressive, but I could see a little bit of a tire save maybe from that of Zach Hall to try to get back up there toward the later half of this run.
And looking at the ticker board, you can see drivers starting to really space themselves out. Our front 2 completely off in their own zip code. That Brian Johnson, Brandon Colley's 3rd place is where we find Larry Yingling, Tom Sinchek, and Richard Wolsifer battling now for 3rd position. The 56 into the grass, and luckily able to hold on. That was a bit of a scare as all the momentum thrown away in a blink of an eye. Richard Wolsifer really giving it his all here in the first 15 laps, but that was something I was going to bring up. Trevor, it just seems like these first 15 laps, we're seeing very much different strategies being thrown out with our front 2 just pulling away. Middle of the pack, a lot of decisions being thrown around.
Yeah, Brandon Colley and Brian Johnson, they've kind of run off about almost 2 seconds back to Larry Yingling, and not surprised to see Larry fall off at the start of a run. He's usually one of those guys that likes to save tires at the start of a run and then work his way back through the field. Tom Sinchek the same way. Richard Wolsifer, though, trying to be aggressive, get up there to 3rd, and we saw what happened to him out of turn number 4, almost through the grass, and had a big wreck there, but able to save it. And then you've got Cedric Hunter, Ryan Bird, Zach Hall, all there that might be doing, I think they're doing the same thing as these guys, saving a little bit of tire for that longer run. I mean, fuel run here tonight, Sam, between 68 and 70 laps, so it's a long fuel run for these guys to go on a set of tires.
Yeah, and those tires, kind of a question mark on who can make the tires last. I know at certain tracks, especially the 1.5 miles, it's very easy to overwork these tires and potentially have them blow up on you and find yourself being forced to pit road. Running on board with Jeff Gilmore. What a snap by that of the 57.
What a snap, and luckily for him, nobody else caught up in that. He was almost 3 wide there with Aaron Krolick and that of, I believe, Bob Skinner, but hard contact with the outside wall for Gilmore there, and he's going to have to bring that 57 down pit road.
He is going to be speeding into pit road, and that could be just calling it a night. Required damage for the 57 after that hit, and he will call it a night. He's left in teleported to pit road, but up front, battling for the lead, it's Brian Johnson, Brandon Colley. Colley in the one we ride on board with, looking at the trophy smack machine. Colley is still in the hunt for this championship, but he's going to need some major points to try to change up his factor of being the championship driver, as he is currently 5th in points, 10 points back from Larry Yingling, but only 7 off Brian Johnson. Now, Johnson with leading a lap and no one else has. It's going to branch it out to now 8 points being the difference between these two drivers. But I'm trying to talk to Colley after last week's race. He's still in the hunt, but the confidence level didn't seem too high after last week's race. I'm curious now with the way he's running, how the one's confidence is currently.
Sure, it feels a little bit better than probably it did last week at Iowa, but right now, Sam, he's got to get up there and get by that of Brian Johnson, lead a lap, and then try to lead the most laps to get 2 points out of it, or lead a lap and get the win to get 2 points to gain some advantage over that of Brian Johnson as they put the 25 car a lap down, who just gets nicely out of the way for everybody. But it looks like Colley's starting to lose a little bit of time to Brian Johnson as this runs continue.
Looking at Brandon Colley's stats, I mean, this driver has been consistently inside of the top 10. The last times that he's not been in the top 10 was back at Talladega wildcard race, where anything can happen, and it makes sense why the one might have been bounced out. But then you got to fall all the way back to early March, back at Twin Ring Motegi, when that was when Colley finished outside of the top 10 in 11th. Besides that, he's been in a long spree of top 10s or top 5 finishes. This one has the consistency, but he needs what he ultimately has been missing on his board of the history books, and that is a win. This one has to get to victory lane if he wants to show that he's still in a fight heading into Miami next week.
Yeah, it needs to find that win, and running out of time, unfortunately, in this season to do so. And right now, continuing to lose a little bit of time, 3/10. The difference between Brian Johnson and Brandon Colley that last lap, Larry Yingling and Tom Sinchek running similar times to that of Brian Johnson as they close in now on the one of Brandon Colley, just kind of going to show you that tire save strategy, I think, starting to come into play for those guys who didn't go as hard at the beginning of this run.
And for that of the 28, certainly a driver that we know once he gets up front clean air, so nice to have moving forward. Also an update for drivers deeper in the field. Jeff Gilmore has officially called it a night. We're down to just 15 drivers out there on track. But a lot of drivers looking strong at this moment. Let's look deep in the field. This is where we find Rich Jameson, who we've been able to talk to in our podcast, the Cool Down Lab, where Robert Blair got to chat with the 86 machine in our most recent episode. The 86 really having just a confident, comfortable day. One of the drivers that topped off on fuel. Curious on how that's going to help this 86 as this run continues to progress.
It's going to be interesting to see what he's going to do with that, extra 3 laps of fuel that he came in and got. With I think how aggressive the tire wear is going to be. I don't know how much longer he'll be able to go compared to everybody else when they decide to come down pit road for tires. But we'll just have to wait and see. But right now, Jameson having just a nice Saturday cruise here in 11th place, trying to close in on 10th place of Bob Skinner.
The driver that's even deeper in the field got that of James Hackworth. James Hackworth Jr. in the 23, showing off his patriotic scheme. A couple of drivers were notified, hey, since it's Memorial Weekend, let's bring out some more patriotic schemes. Got Hackworth, Christopher Norris bringing out the red, white, and blue on their colors as 38 caught up in our first caution of the day. An innocent victim, and the damage has been critical to forcing the 38 this deep in the field. And with how consistent we've seen Christopher Norris be these last couple of weeks, it's kind of a shame that he got caught up in an incident, but that's the factor of racing. You need that luck factor, and 38 just did not have it today.
Yeah, it just wasn't his day today to have a good finish there, and it was, like you said, he's been running really well, so I was interested to see how good he was going to be here tonight. Just unfortunately caught up in that wreck, but moving up here is Aaron Kralik doing battle with the 49 Ryan Bird, the 56 of Wolsifer, and looks like Richard Wolsifer starting to really struggle here, Sam, as he gets passed by the 49 of Ryan Bird, and here comes Aaron Kralik looking to the inside, trying to pick up a position.
And this is one of those moments where you see a driver so aggressive in those first 15 laps, and you get a sense it's not going to last for long. And that's exactly what has happened to Richard Wolsifer, who at one moment was battling for third place and now has fallen back to ninth in just out of 8 laps. So Richard has now turned into a critical moment where he might need to be asking for a caution to come out to stay in the mix with these drivers inside of our top 10. Otherwise, he's going to be falling quickly, running almost a full 6/10 off of the rest of the field is the 56 machine.
Yeah, wanting the caution, but you don't want to be the caution is the trade-off there. So Richard definitely probably wants a caution, come down and get fresh tires and kind of reset to keep up with these guys. But right now, continuing to fall back because he's already lost touch with the one of Aaron Kralik. Next car in line will be the 82 of Bob Skinner to catch up to the 56 machine as he continues his free fall. But right there with him, same in this free fall, the one of Brandon Colley already gotten passed by Larry Yingling, Tom Sinchek, and Cedric Hunter, and make that Zach Hall as the one car starting to really fade through the field as well.
I would say the one was the very first driver to start to fade, and then it was Richard Wolsifer, Bob Skinner, and others that started to follow in suit. The one of Colley at one moment, just 1/10 off right on the back bumper of Brian Johnson, has now fallen quickly to 6th place. And the drivers that are on the move looking at the times, Zach Hall, who we were questioning how many positions was the 42 willing to give up? Well, he's reaping the rewards because he is now battling right on the back bumper of Cedric Hunter. What makes this battle interesting, drivers that were teammates coming into this season, working with one another throughout the regular season to get to the playoffs. Last week, Zach Hall has removed himself from working with these drivers in Discord, and he is in his own channel, own world, and has to figure out how to move around these drivers without constant communication, unless he wants to chime over iRacing.
Interesting call there by Zach to do that. Maybe feeling like the team aspect might be hurting him here a little bit, but you got to get around Cedric Hunter. And looking at his lap times, I mean, that lap before he tried to make the pass on Cedric Hunter was almost 2/10 quicker than everybody around him, but now just caught behind this 13 machine, going to go to the outside here out of turn number 2 and get a good run here down the back straightaway and finally clear Cedric. Tom Sinchek with a little bit of a wiggle down the back straightaway in the 8 machine ahead of him. But Sam, interesting call by Zach, who came into these playoffs as the favorite, this chase format, but has really struggled throughout them. Maybe trying to find a way to right that ship here before we get to Homestead.
Yeah, he was looking after that first week, that first race. The closest contender was Vincent Sora. Sora gave up racing for the playoffs because he decided to go have real life adventures that took position over iRacing. And so Zach Hall had such a huge gap to work with for the first 2 weeks of the playoffs. It's been thrown away. And now for Zach Hall, finds himself third in points, 5 points back from Larry Yingling. But this 42, you're seeing the hands move and work with one another. Let's stay still on board for another lap, Trevor. Give us a lap here at Atlanta.
Here we come down into turn number 1 and 2. And he's going to take it kind of almost to the white line here. He's going to late arc it all the way to the bottom. We'll see how loose it gets on him here out of turn number 2. You can see the wheels the hands really sawing at the wheel there. Not a lot of right correction there. Didn't have to put a lot of right wheel into it to keep it straight, but you can just see how much he's having to work this wheel here now through 3 and 4 again, taking it to that white line at the bottom. You see Tom Sinchek in front of him kind of running a higher line. And again, just a little bit of correction there out of turn number 4. Sam, I got to say, looking really comfortable right now is Zach Hall, not having to put not sawing at the wheel as much as I thought he might be having to this late into a run.
No, and he's keeping it together. A few other drivers in front and behind really starting to feel the struggles. When you saw their exit, really sawing at the wheel, trying to keep this thing straight. And if you want to see action like that constantly, every single lap sawing at the wheel, we're going to have a great showing of that June 10th. Ourselves the Gamer Outreach 600. We'll touch more on that later on in the race, but our charity race just a week and a half away. Crazy to think of how quickly we're about to be showing you some Gen 4 action at Charlotte. This weekend has got ourselves the real life Charlotte race with Coca-Cola 600, where they're going to be at Charlotte for 400 laps, 600 miles. Cannot wait to watch tomorrow. Tons of racing action tomorrow. Trevor, this weekend is such a blast for me to get to just watch in general as a fan of racing, but seeing these drivers out on track for the WSSR, it's also a pleasure.
Oh yeah, seeing these guys out here racing tonight kind of it makes up for the lack of racing that we had today since the Xfinity race was rained out. So nice to get your fulfillment of racing in on a Saturday night with these guys putting on a great show here. But Sunday, I think, as a racing fan in general, the Memorial Weekend is probably one of the best days as a racing fan with the Formula One race in the morning. Then you have the Indy 500 in the afternoon and the Coke 600 on that evening. I mean, what better way to spend a day than watching some great racing throughout the whole day?
And hopefully you'll also be spending it with family while watching the great racing. It is always a blast. It's one of my favorite times. For me in the West Coast, it certainly is a long day. It starts at 7 a.m., but it's a fun day of racing action. For these drivers, though, tonight, 37 laps in. And Trevor, I'm watching the ticker board. I'm watching the drivers. The middle pack of this field is looking hazardous. Some drivers very much looking out of control, and one of them being the 8 of Tom Sinchek, who's trying to survive Zach Hall's relentless pass. Rich Jameson trying to make the pass here on Mark Morales, who the 91 has been struggling on pace, but the outside lane is what's allowing these drivers to keep their position.
Yeah, just being able to hold that momentum through the straightaway, pinch that car to the inside, really helping these guys defend these positions. But Martin looking a little bit loose there. Jameson trying to use that bottom line, but you just see not able to carry that momentum off the corner. He can't run it out as far as he wanted to with Martin Morales being on his outside, and Martin still able to defend this position.
Defending, holding on, and trying to get every little piece of this track. Now going to the complete outside, almost to the outside wall, is Martin Morales. Little wiggle, though, and that's going to give the momentum to out of the 86 to the inside lane. Needs to do a slide job move. Really send it into these corners, but Rich Jameson just keeping similar pace, and that's going to hurt the exit. Watch out here for the 86 as he exits the corner.
Yeah, still trying to get this pass done. This has been 3 laps now. These two have been side by side, and it's a battle for 9th and 10th position right now. And Jameson again going to try to use this bottom line, and Martin again using that outside line, but looks like Jameson a little bit of a wiggle though, but I think he's finally got that 91 machine cleared here down the front straightaway.
Trying to get back into the throttle, hold his position, hold steady, and will be able to hold on and keep that spot as Mark Morales will fall down to 10th position, 40 laps in here at Atlanta. You're watching the Memorial Appreciation 225. This is the second to last race of the playoffs. We'll crown a champion next week at Homestead. Currently, it's Brian Johnson leading the way in the 28 machine, but for how long? Because looking at the lap times, Larry Yingling is catching up, and our points leader coming into tonight looking strong as he's now almost a half a second off our leader.
I'm not at all surprised that 40 laps into a run and Larry's running down the leaders. I mean, I feel like this is what he does week in, week out. When we go to these mile-and-a-half racetracks where tire saving is important for these long runs. And I mean, I think it all stems back to that Kentucky race to start the chase format off, where he ran down Zach Hall, was able to get the win, and Simpson's been on such just a roll here in this 67 machine, already down now to almost a half a second to the 28 of Brian Johnson.
And Brian has been slipping up, a rarity to see at most tracks. The 28 is known for being so stable, smooth at every race we go to. He has been having some wiggles periodically, and that is what's costing him time, being about 2/10 off just every other lap because the rear ends are shot, and the heat that's been built up certainly a factor that continues to watch out for. And something we have not brought up, but we really do need to talk about, that is the weather. Atlanta, known for being called Hot Atlanta because it's always extremely hot. The tracks are always at a burning sensation, and tonight it's no different. Ambient temperature 85 degrees, but it's the track temp 128 degrees Fahrenheit. It is very hot, and these drivers trying to protect their tires, but at the same time, there's not much you can do when the track is this warm.
No, at 128 degrees, you're kind of just at the mercy of the weather there, and you got to do the best you can to try to conserve those tires. And these tires do not like a lot of heat. And I mean, Atlanta living up to its nickname, Hot Atlanta, here tonight. And these drivers definitely, you've seen it all night long, have their hands full as Sinchek here, just trying to get through these corners, wondering when they're going to start making these pit stops.
Pit stops. I mean, again, the fuel run we were given was 68 to 70 laps. A little saving fuel, thinking about stretching a little bit further. We know Rich Jameson topped off on fuel, as well as James Ackworth Jr. back in 14th position for the 23 machine. they've got to watch out for other drivers. This is James Kaufman, yellow and black, catching up to fourth place runner of Tom Senchak. Kaufman was in pit road, getting required damage done 5 laps ago. Now out on track, fresh rubber, and showing what it's like to have some speed underneath the 25, even with the damage he's dealing with.
Yeah, even with the damage, I mean, still looking at his lap times, I mean, running similar lap times to that of our leader, Brian Johnson, but just closing in on these guys. And I think as a lead lap car, especially Tom Senchak, that's the last thing you really want to have to worry about is a lap car maybe passing you here and having to deal with their dirty air or maybe them making a mistake while they try to pass you.
As the machine has been trying to hold steady, he's been watching in his windshield. That's Zach Hall pulling away. Zach Hall now within a second, about a second and a half off of our leader. 42. Last 5 to 6 laps, been the fastest vehicle on track after getting by Tom Senchak. And also with Larry catching up to Brian Johnson, it's really up to those two on how quick Zach's going to catch up to our top 2, because if they start battling and Brian Johnson's defending aggressively on this lead position, Zach Hall's going to close in even quicker than what these drivers naturally would have had.
Yeah, I think Zach wants to see these two get to battling with one another, and it's not going to be many more laps before I think that actually starts to happen as Larry continues to close in here on Brian Johnson. A little bit different of an entry into the corners for these two. Brian takes it instantly down to the white line. Larry with a little bit later of an arc down to the white line, still trying to close in on Brian Johnson and about 3 car lengths back, and through 3 and 4 again. Larry going with about the same style of entry through 3 and 4, staying already at 28, right hurt the 67, but Larry still continues the chase.
Closer and closer to lap 15 means we might be seeing drivers aiming for an undercut. Currently, the lap times about over a second and a half difference from the drivers' best lap times to what they just ran this previous lap, and being 49 laps and about to be 50 laps into this race. We're hitting the 1/3 mark, so if you're going to turn this race into a 2-stop, you're about to be hitting your spot to come to pit road as Larry Yingling calling his spot. It's time to aim low and put the pressure on Brian Johnson. Now into pit road is Larry Yingling after that move.
Interesting move. Larry's typically not the first guy to make a pit stop, Sam. I'm surprised by this. But the 2-stop strategy may be feeling like it's the quickest way to run this race. And now this is going to be interesting for the rest of the field. If you're Brian Johnson, Zach Hall, Tom Senchak, Ryan Bird, you know, and the rest of the top 10, what do you do? Do you continue to stay out, or do you come in and cover off this 67 machine?
Driver that does come into pit road, going to be Brandon Colley as well as Bob Skinner, going to be coming into pit road. Same lap as Larry Yingling. Staying out another one to be Brian Johnson. Now for Johnson, this is when things can get questionable, because if you stay out for an extra 2 to 3 laps with how close Larry was, you're going to have to run down that 67 machine, but at least you'll have the tire advantage moving forward through a whole run and stint. But if you stay out for 5 or more laps, you're giving away 7 to 8 seconds that you got to find some fashion to gain back, and you might not be able to, as Brian Johnson stays out another lap. I'm expecting him to come in this time after he crosses the line, but Trevor, you never know with the fuel run being as large as it is.
You never know. I mean, he could technically stay out another 10 laps, 15 laps if he really wanted to, but I mean, looking at their lap times right now, he's almost running 2 seconds slower than what his best lap of the race is. And with Larry coming in for fresh tires, I mean, Larry's gonna be about a 1.5 to 2 seconds quicker than that of Brian Johnson and Zach Hall. And speaking of Zach Hall, I mean, Sam, he's almost caught up to the 28 of Brian Johnson. He was 3/10 quicker the last lap.
I mean, looking at the times, it is crazy to see how much Zach is gaining each and every lap. And just to think that one push by Larry Yingling, throwing it down low, putting in the mindset for Brian Johnson, he might have to defend on the outside, maybe used up a little bit of extra tires, that it's allowing Zach Hall to be now less than a half a second away from the 28's bumper. Will Zach now put the pressure on Brian Johnson here? Or will the 28 pull it into pit road and he'll stay out for another lap for these two? As other drivers that have already come into pit road, Rich Jamison, the most recent of drivers that hit pit road, out of Brandon Colley, Larry Yingling, and others have made their stops from 10th on back. We are still waiting for drivers 8, our top 8 drivers still needing to hit pit road, as well as Rich Jamison. as James Hackworth Jr. is going to just duck it down low and get out of the way for our leaders.
Yeah, looking at these times, I mean, Larry's last lap a 31.5, Brian Johnson's a 33.3, and Zach Hall a 33.1. So I mean, Larry is almost 2 seconds quicker than these guys. And Tom Sinchek down pit road now. It's out of fourth position, or I'm sorry, third position. So again, how much longer, if you're Brian Johnson, Zach Hall, Ryan Bird, Cedric Hunter, Aaron Kralik, how much longer do you really want to stay out? Is Larry's already caught up to our leaders again, Sam?
Larry is about to unlap himself, so if the caution flag would come out, he would be on the lead lap, which will allow him not to take the wave around and be stuck behind other drivers. But because of the fresh rubber, takes the outside lane, and just like that, back on the lead lap is the 67 in 8th place. And that means that once we see Johnson, Hall, Bird all coming to pit road, your leader would be Larry Yingling currently, who's trying to gain a big build up a massive lead that's going to force Brian Johnson, Zach Hall into a patience game that really can mess up these drivers, because mentality-wise, you feel like you need to be pushing, be aggressive with fresh rubber, and gain all that time back instantly. The patience game's about to be thrown down as Zach Hall hits pit road, does the same exact thing Larry did to Brian earlier.
Yeah, look to the outside or look to the inside, a little bit of a battle there, and then brought that 42 machine down pit road. So he's going to make his pit stop. And again, this is still about 10 laps earlier than what they told us the fuel run was. And for Brian Johnson, do you pit this time? Do you stay out another lap? Ryan Bird stayed out, Aaron Kralik, Cedric Hunter, they've all stayed out. Christopher Norris comes down pit road. So now our top four, the last ones to make their pit stops. And it looks like 28, Brian Johnson, maybe bringing that machine down pit road this time by.
No, he's going to move up, staying out another lap. I think for Brian, it is stay out, make that last pit stop as short as you can, so you don't have to worry about saving tires. Be aggressive and burn up all your rubber for the final stint as Johnson continues to stay out. Same for Bird, Hunter, and Aaron Kralik. Still waiting for them to come into pit road as Christopher Norris is going to be getting his service done. Top four drivers yet to hit pit road. But now it's seeing things get mixy with drivers on new tires, those on old. Like you said, it's about a 2-second difference on drivers that are on new tires and those on old. And the closing rate you saw there, massive and almost causing collisions for our leader.
Yeah, this is the scary part if you're Brian Johnson, when you have all these guys unlapping themselves, especially when you're side by side with another one with the closing rate of almost 2 seconds, the difference. And you can just see how quickly that of Richard Wolfsper in the 25 of James Kaufman just drove away from Brian Johnson, who again, staying out here now, coming to lap 60, see if he decides to stay out another lap or if he's going to finally come down pit road. And looks like, Sam, he's finally coming down pit road in this 28 machine, but stayed out, almost 10 laps longer than Larry, or 11 laps longer than Larry, and that of about 6 laps longer than that of Tom Sinchek, and 4 laps longer than Zach Hall. I don't know. I think he's going to lose too much time to these guys.
This is when strategy is at its finest. Could we see another race this season go caution-free from this point on? Because a long run like this certainly has changed out the factors on how some of these drivers wanted to think about strategy. As our top three still needing to hit pit road, that being Ryan Bird, Cedric Hunter, and Aaron Kralik. Now Ryan Bird hitting pit road for himself. Kralik stays out as well as Cedric Hunter. But as these drivers getting service done, Larry Yingling should be taking the lead once this cycle is over. With 61 laps into the book, we're going to be taking our first commercial break of the night. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us here on Freaky Fast Broadcasting. You're watching the WSSR Roasted Gems Cup Series playoff action for Season 6. It's the second to last race of the championship as you're watching the Military Appreciation 225. We're going to go side by side so you don't miss a thing. We'll see you right after this.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. In officially licensed cars, engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Masker can't defend. He's got the outside line for the second part, and he can't hold on.
Going the long way around. We're going to be 3 wide for the lead as they all come to the line. Who is going to take it in the end?
And here comes Lockwood. He's going to make the move to the outside. Quinn tries to force him off a little bit, but there he goes. It's going to be side by side through turn 1.
Will he be able to cover him off? He does. Weaving back to the left-hand side. Reynolds is trying everything. The kitchen sink is being thrown at it.
They're leaning on each other. Coming into turn number 3. It's going to be a drag race through 3 and 4. Coming back to the line. Here comes Frisch on the bottom. Bouchard's going to hold the inside. Tries to be the late breaker here. They're going to be side by side through the final chicane. They bang doors, but keep it clean.
As they're still 4 wide on the run down into the back straightaway. Demerit's looking for a line as well. What is going on in Michigan?
Novak into the fence. They're still beating and banging.
Oh
and to the line.
He is much faster coming through there. Is there damage on Challenger? Abramitis is ahead. There's going to be a race to the line. Who is going to get it?
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You are watching the WSSR Roasted Gems Cup Series playoff action for Season 6. It's the second to last race of the playoffs for the Military Appreciation 225. Big shout out to the sponsors that allows WSSR to give you the coverage here tonight on Freaky Fast Broadcasting. The first being the title sponsor for the last 3 seasons, Roasted Gems Coffee. Roasted Gems Coffee is partnered back up with WSSR for Season 7. They start back up in July. Cannot wait for it as these drivers moving to that of the Gen 4 Cup cars for Season 7. But if you'd like to start your day off right with quality coffee and many a different of flavors, go head over to roastedgems.com and use the promo code WSSR for 5% off. And as well, big shout out to Trophy Smack. Trophy Smack, place to go if you want to get your custom trophies. That's a belt, ring, a trophy itself, or even a wall smack, which is a metal plate that you can put on your wall that could show off many different images that you should decide you want to have. Go head over to trophysmack.com if you want to be sending that of rewards or unrewards. Send it over with trophysmack.com. Get them today using the promo code WSSR Cup. That's WSSR CUP today for 10% off on all purchases at Trophy Smack. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Freaky Fast Broadcasting. My name is Sam Dyer. Joining me is Trevor Earhart and Trevor. 72 laps in, and Cedric Hunter is still out on track, and no one else has gone as far as the 13 has gone.
Going for the one stop. He's going to try to take this halfway, lap 75, come down pit road and make this a one-stop race for himself compared to everybody else going for a two-stop. And it might work out for him. It'd be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see if this stays green the rest of the way, how this is going to play out for Cedric Hunter. Right now, Larry Yingling, the first of our leaders that came down pit road for this two-stop strategy, that only about 3 seconds back from Cedric Hunter. And I mean, Sam, he could theoretically, I mean, if this was the final stretch, he might be able to hold that gap to Larry. But this is going to be close for Cedric Hunter, as I think he's having to clutch and coast to try to stretch this out as far as he can.
And the gap continuing to shrink more and more. Larry about to make the pass at the end of this lap. Will Cedric Hunter push it, though, for one more lap, knowing for sure he can make it to an end of a stint? Or does he come in this lap to 13, exit turn 4, very slow and ducking to the apron? Cedric Hunter makes it to the halfway marker as Larry makes the pass for the lead. And now the strategy game is out. The pit cycle is done. Can Cedric Hunter build up a big enough gap so that he can have over Larry Yingling and the rest of the field in just 25 laps? Larry's aiming for lap 100. That's where he's aiming to make his stop. The rest of the field, still a question mark on where they're going to be, because Larry decided to stay pit so early. Zach Hull and everyone else decided to wait so much later. Larry currently has a 5.8 second gap lead over this 42.
Yeah, Larry with that early pit stop able to pull a nice gap back to that of Zach Hall and Brian Johnson as well, who stayed out a little bit longer than the both of them. But and for that of Brian, not really closed in on Zach Hall. He's about a second, 1.2 seconds back from Zach. So just interesting how all this pit strategy is played out, and what's going to happen here when we get to this next round of pit stops. Will that of Zach Hall, Brian Johnson, will they come in a little bit earlier than Larry to try to close in that gap, or what's going to be the pit strategy here? We know that Cedric Hunter is going to try to make it to the end, but what are the rest of these guys going to do, and where do they split this last pit stop up at?
I mean, for that of Brian Johnson, he's done a great job recovering and catching up to Zach Hall. Less than a second difference between second and third, but it's first to second. It's still over 5 seconds. And if Larry comes into pit road before Zach Hall is within a second, this is going to be a wild end of this race, because for Zach Hall, if the gap is still that big, they are forced to extend as long as they can. So they've got fresher tires to allows and enables them to even have a chance to run down Larry. But the advantages and disadvantages are going to be great as this race continues to check away, as 67 came into tonight as our points leader. He had a 3-point buffer over Brian Johnson. Now both those drivers have led a lap, so that means that they equal out. But pulling away from Zach Hall, who did not get to lead a lap, was the 42. Interested on how Zach is going to continue on this run, as with him having to defend over Brian Johnson, you see that trophy smack machine running in third. Trying to close up top two. This story is just building up more and more, Trevor, it's hard to tell how this story in the end of this race is going to go because of how different a lot of these strategies are.
Yeah, I don't really know, how to think that this is going to play out. I mean, it feels like Larry's got a really good chance at collecting another win here tonight. The battle for second might come down to that of Zach Hall, Brian Johnson, but the one I'm most interested in, Sam, is going to be this 13 machine of Cedric Hunter, who's getting ready to go around. In second place is Zach Hall right now after he made his pit stop. How is this strategy going to work out for Cedric Hunter, and what is that going to do, for that of Larry Yingling, Zach Hall, and Brian Johnson? Will Larry be able to run down this 13 machine at the end of the race, or and to that, will Zach Hall and Brian Johnson be able to do so, or will they possibly give up a position to that 13 machine at the end of the night?
For Cedric Hunter, he needs to make sure that he's got a big enough gap to hold off the rest of the field once they make their stop, because he's going to be on extremely older tires, needs a massive buffer to work with. And the numbers, it's going to be difficult to say. 20 laps to go before we get to lap 100, where we're expecting a lot of these drivers aiming for the two stop to start trickling in. Do have reports, though, of drivers deeper in the field. Richard Wolsifer is now 11 laps down. Reasoning why for the 56, he found himself slamming into the outside wall of the exit of turn 2, where we've seen that be the trend for drivers, but 56 is getting back out on track after spending 5 minutes in pit road and losing a lot of time. And he's going to be hoping to just trickle his way into that, at least finishing this race. As we continue on throughout the night, a lot of drivers really not close to one another, except for the pass that was just made there between Cedric Hunter and Christopher Norris. Norris just had to move over and watch as the 13, freshest tires out of anyone, really putting down the heat now as he just put down his fastest lap of the race, the previous lap to the one that he just put down.
Yeah, and I think for Cedric, you want to be a little bit careful. You don't want to push it too hard early. Obviously, you want to make up some time. He's lost a lot of time staying out as long as he did to everybody else who needs to make it up. But I think it's such a balancing act, Sam, with going hard early on, making sure you conserve those tires for the later part of the run as well.
I think also for the 13, he recognizes as he's trying to make the pass and unlock himself now here, as well as Rich Jameson's is 8th and 9th position. Could be a battle to watch out for moving forward as Aaron Crawley's got pressured tires. But going back to that Cedric Hunter and Larry Yingling battle of the two completely different strategies, Cedric Hunter going with the one stop, Larry going with the two stop strategies. Larry, if he does continue with pitting on each 50 stage, pit on lap 50 to start this race off, and then we're expecting him to come in at lap 100. That'll allow him 50 laps to try to run down Cedric Hunter, and that seems like plenty of time if you're the 67 to catch up to Hunter. But it's all also on Zach Hall and Brian Johnson. How much time are they willing to give up if they're going to be trying to run down the 67, as Zach Hall and Johnson, they're on top of one another, but they are just mired a little bit less than 3.5 seconds off of our leader.
Yeah, and they're slowly closing in on Larry, about 0.3 quicker that last lap. Zach Hall over Larry Yingling that last time by, and he's been consistently about 1.5-2 quicker than Larry the last couple of laps. So slowly starting to close in that gap. But same, they need to close in that time only, about 1.5 quicker over Larry. But they need to close in a little bit more before these pit stops start to cycle out for the second time to I think really kind of solidify the three-way battle for the potential win.
As Christopher Norris is going to be staying high, allowing both these drivers to move on past, as the 38 actually going to drop down low, give it slightly more dirty air to Brian Johnson, as 38 a little bit more affiliated with the Freaky Fast Racing crew than Sidewinders, where the 28 and as well as the 01 race with one another as Norris moves high, and we'll let Brian Johnson race this out with Zach Hall. The battling for second place still on, and now it's less than 3 seconds between first and second position. And for Zach Hall, I mean, this is such an interesting thought process on why he decided to stay out as long as he did, especially on the fact, I mean, Trevor, Zach was the fastest driver on the long run. He had caught back up with the leaders by the time that those pit stops started. I'm so surprised on the fact that he is deciding to go with this such oddball strategy.
Yeah, I'm surprised as well that he decided to stay out. Not as long as that of Brian Johnson, but almost that of 6 laps longer than Larry did, especially with the pace that he had on the long run. And I mean, still consistently the fastest of our top 3 on this long run. So I'm still showing really good long run pace, but I feel like the time that he gave up staying out as long as he did is really going to be detrimental to the 42's chances of getting a win and trying to close in on Larry's points lead going into Homestead next week.
Trying to chip away any way possible. Homestead's going to be a good one to watch. Drivers are excited for the battling. I know one driver that is extremely excited, and that's Cedric Hunter, who would love to win here tonight to set the momentum and the pacing for next week, who should be the odds-on favorite to win at Homestead at his own pace. There's a driver that we saw running up front and right on the back bumper of our leader earlier in this race in the first 20 laps. Has fallen back now to 5th. That's Brandon Colley in the one machine. And Colley, this has been a weird night watching the one. He had extremely quick speed under practice. Got a decent qualifying in 3rd. Was battling, like I said, for the lead at one moment, but then lost all that traction. Now finds himself back here in 5th place, 12.5 seconds off of the leader. But Trevor, I mean, still a solid day for the one who, like I said earlier on, his patience and consistency of fishing in the top 10 or top 5 continues to show.
Yeah, I mean, hey, just continuing to run at a pretty good, position here in 5th. So, I mean, nothing to be upset about. But obviously, I think for Collie coming in 10 points out of the championship lead and kind of with the outside shot of maybe winning the championship, he went hard early on. I think that kind of is what cost him all that time to Zach Hall, Brian Johnson, and Larry Ewing. He really felt like a rock, almost outside the top 10 before those pit stops, and now has found himself just kind of riding around here in 5th before we make our second round and see if he goes with a little bit different strategy, maybe decides to stay out a little bit longer, have fresher tires at the end to see if he can make up any of this ground that he's lost. But right now, almost that of 7 seconds behind the 4th place runner of Tom Sinchek.
Riding on board with the one machine of Collie. Now a lot of action in front of him. So the next driver is 7 seconds in front. That's where Tom Sinchek is. But you see in the mirror on the top, it's a driver getting bigger and bigger, and that is Ryan Bird, who's got 11 lap fresher tires. Look back from the one's bumper, and you see the 49 picking and choosing which lane to go, and it looks like the inside is going to be the decision to be made. Oh, the outside, a little bit of a block by Collie, but didn't want to deke for the last opportunity. Instead, going to do some side drafting through 1 and 2.
Yeah, almost a little bit of contact between those two. Ryan was really aggressive with that side draft, but easily gets by Brandon Collie there for 5th position, so he's probably back to 6th, and you can just see the difference in the 11 lap difference in tires there. I mean, looking at the lap times, Ryan Bird 4/10 quicker than that of Brandon Collie that last lap. So just showing you how important those newer tires can be. And I think that's why Brandon might have to stay out here a little bit longer, try to get on some fresher tires to maybe run down the guys in front of him.
Tried something slightly different. Could be a choice to be made as we are inching closer and closer to lap 100. We're expecting Larry Yingling to make his stop, but then it's the rest of the field. When do they come into pit road? Do you stay out for a little bit longer, or do you try to cut in the gap that you've made up? Because currently the difference between 1st and 2nd is 1.7 seconds. You see there Ryan Bird, who's in 5th place. One of the fastest drivers on track is the 49. Those are the drivers that pitted pretty close to around one another, around that lap 60 to 55 number. The driver on the freshest of rubber, it's back in 8th place, Cedric Hunter. He has now cut the gap. At one moment, he was a full lap down. Now just 20 seconds off our leader of Larry Yingling, but he needs a little bit more as we're inching closer and closer for the 67 to pit.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he needs the gap to be, but definitely I think he's going to need probably, once this cycles through, I would think a 20 to 30 second gap to Larry to try to hold him off to the end of this race. So it's going to be interesting to see if Cedric's been able to pull off that balance of pushing and saving tire for himself to be able to have that gap for this one-stop strategy to work out.
I mean, the strategy is looking very close. At relief for that of Cedric Hunter, he needs to be within 8 seconds before Larry comes in pit road. And it should be a big enough gap where it could be possible to outrun the 67, but he is currently right now 10 seconds away from that number where he needs to be. I think for Cedric, I think he would have needed Larry to come into pit road maybe a few laps later, but here comes the 67, sooner than what we expected. Lap 97 into pit road for Larry Yingling.
Yeah, it's about 3 laps earlier than what we were anticipating. And I mean, Zach Hall had run him down, was only about a second and a half off, so Zach did exactly what he needed to do, and with Larry coming in this early, this might actually play into Zach Hall's favor if he stays out about the same amount of laps that he did the previous pit cycle. This might work out for him. He might be able to catch up to Larry, so we'll have to wait and see what this 42 decides to do.
There's a 7-lap difference between Zach Hall and Larry Yingling. 10 lap difference between that of Brian Johnson and Larry Yingling on when they decided to come into pit road. Tom Sinchek comes into pit road sooner, and the undercut. Could it be the better choice on the long run? 99 laps into the book of 150. And now it's make your bed and get ready to lay in it as drivers are coming in to make their final stop of the day, unless I know some people hate it when we bring this up, but if a caution flag would to come out, this could change everything for these drivers because they did come into tonight with 4 extra sets of tires in pit road. Majority of the field has already used 1 set. When you come into pit road, you'll be using your 2nd set. Means we're left with just 2 sets of tires in pit road to work with if we get some late cautions that could change everything here.
Oh, if you get a caution right now, I mean, it really hurts the 67 of Larry's. He would have to technically take a wave around. But I think here comes Zach Hall, Sam, lap 100 coming to 101. He's going to bring that 42 machine down pit road. So not staying out only 3 laps longer than Larry. Interesting call by Zach Hall. I figured if he stayed out, that of 7 laps longer like he did the last time, he might be there, but maybe feeling like he doesn't want to give up that much time to that 67 machine.
I actually prefer this. Coming in a little bit sooner, you look to be the stronger driver on the long run. You were able to hold steady. You gave up a lot of time in the first 20 laps of that initial run, but you're able to climb back and close in on Larry at the end of that first stint before we saw drivers make their first green flag pit stop. But for Brian Johnson, he's now in the hornet's nest of trying to see drivers that are on fresh rubber getting by him. And I do want to give note on some strategy moves. Cedric Hunter had about a 15.5-second gap over Larry Yingling. That's not going to hold. I don't expect that to stay. Cedric Hunter's 1 stop was a valiant effort. The 13 may need a caution to change up this cycle and get back into the mix.
Yeah, I think he's going to need a caution to get back on the same pit strategy. I'm right there with you, Sam. I don't think it's going to work out for him. It was like you said, a valiant effort and a really, interesting strategy call to be the only driver to try it. I just think he's going to come up short for Cedric Hunter. Now it's going to be the question of what does Brian Johnson do? How much longer does he continue to stay out? And with that, what's the gap going to be between Zach Hall and Larry Yingling once all this cycles through?
Right now, Zach Hall back up to full song. Larry Yingling as well at full song. It is a difference of 5.6 seconds and a 3-lap difference on when Zach Hall pitted and Larry Yingling pitted. That's a lot of time that you got to make up on tires. On top of that, you got to save your tires for the rest of the run to make sure you've got something in those final 25 laps as Brian Johnson continues to stay out on track. And I think he's going to be in for the same spot that he chose before. Stay out, hit 10 laps after Larry has already pitted, and see where you are in the positioning after that point, and just let the cards lie where they do as we continue to run this race out 104 laps down of 150.
Yeah, I think Brian's going to do exactly that. I mean, he was able to catch up to Zach, but even with the tire advantage, he started to fall off that 42 machine in that long run. So maybe this time by with the fresher tires might be able to get by Zach Hall and maybe run down that of Larry Yingling. But I don't know. I think Zach's just been so good on this long run. We'll have to see if it continues. I mean, we thought the same thing back at Kentucky, Sam, where Zach just looked so dominant even on the long run. And then that last quarter of the race, everything fell apart for him. So will the tables turn around for this 42 here tonight at Atlanta?
Strategies all around, and here comes Brian Johnson into pit road. Only give 7 laps being the difference between the 28 and the 67. And that's going to give the lead to the 49 of Ryan Bird. And Bird, how long will we see the 49 decide to stay out for himself? A lot of different calls, strategies thrown out. Who will make it to the end of this Military Appreciation 225? Can't wait to take it to the end. We are going to take our final commercial break here this evening as drivers are finishing up with their second green flag stops of the night. We want to give a big shout out to everyone who's been watching. Thank you for joining with us on your Saturday night on Freaky Fast Broadcasting. You're watching the WSSR Roasted Gems Cup Series. Playoff time. We will go side by side once again. We'll see you right after this.
You wanted the best. You got them for a rest. Often imitated, never duplicated. The greatest show on dirt. The World of Outlaws. Dirt Racing will be available September 27th. Pre-order your copy today.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the WSSR Roasted Gems Cup Series. Drivers all around have made their final stop of the night. Cedric Hunter calling an audible, and he's decided not to stick with the one stop. The rest of the field, it's all about taking it to the end. And let's give our final shout-outs of the night to our major sponsors here at the WSSR. Main one being the title sponsor of Roasted Gems Coffee. Been the title sponsor with the WSSR for the last couple of seasons. It's been a pleasure, but if you want to get yourself hands on some premium coffee and start your day off right, head over to roastedgems.com. Look at their wide range of selections in coffee. They've got a huge one to check out. And remember to use the promo code WSSR for 5% off. As well, big shout out to Trophy Smack. Trophy Smack, the place to go. I haven't seen a lot of wrecks, but we certainly have seen the outside wall of turn 2 giving off a lot of wall smack moments of the day. Drivers getting required damage. And if you would like to go get yourself a wall smack, which is a high gloss metal piece that you can get your safety magnet procedure to place your piece on a wall, go head over to trophysmack.com and get your wall smack completely customizable. You pick the image and put it on your wall smack. Thank you to all the amazing drivers and sponsors that we have here at the WSSR. My name is Sam Dyer. With me is Trevor Earhart on Freaky Fast Broadcasting. And Trevor, 119 laps in, and it seems to be we're seeing a pretty clear picture on where the drivers may be finishing here this evening.
Yeah, I think it's going to come down to a battle between Larry Yingling and Zach Hall. Can Zach run him back down on this long run? And if so, will he be able to pass that 67 machine? We saw right before the pit stop, Zach had cut it down to about a second and a half. Right now, still running about that of a tenth and a half to 2/10 quicker than Larry. But did he go too hard too early, Sam? That's going to be the question for this 42 machine. Will he run out of tire before he catches up to the 67? Only 31 laps to go. We're going to find out real quick, though.
Now we will find out as the driver exiting pit road from June Tackle Jr., who is going to be the last driver to make a stop unless someone has a catastrophic issue that's forced to pit road. Everyone has made their last stop and are done. Zach Hall, this has got to say, for the playoffs, what a run this 42 is having here tonight. It really changed up his strategy game. These first three races of this playoffs has been rough to watch, especially the fact that he had, at one moment in the playoffs, a 10-point buffer over second place, and now being 5 points back and could be even more after tonight's race. Not the playoffs that Zach wanted to see, but man, has it been fun to watch these drivers here tonight in the last couple of weeks on how the points have been changing and evolving throughout the evening.
Yeah, it's been a really good chase format that they've switched to with the consistency being needed, to get this championship. And it's not like Zach had a bad first race. I mean, he led the most laps, led a lap. He got 2 points, but he just fell back at the end of that race and had a really bad run at that New Hampshire, and Larry goes back-to-back wins. And then last week at Iowa had another, subpar, I believe he was outside the top 5. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Sam, but I think he was outside the top 5 when I went back and saw the results there. But here tonight having a great run, but this is the type of run Zach needed from the get-go to secure that championship and protect that 10-point lead that he had coming in.
Yeah, he needed to just finish up in the top 3 forever racing would have been all right, but finishing outside the top 5 for 2 races out of the 3, not the way that you want to start out this first round, this playoff stint, because the way that this format works is you got 16 drivers that made the playoffs based on how you finished in the regular season. If you made the playoffs, that's based on the point advantage you would have. Each position was a 2-point difference, and Zach Hall had the biggest gap as the regular season champion, but certainly has been a weird night watching on the differences on speed, and the playoffs certainly changed up. Thought we were just going to see Zach Hall pull away from a championship. Instead, all eyes on the 67, who's been just tearing it up here in the playoffs. But seeing it pop up, it's the Gamer Outreach 600. We said we were going to talk about it earlier in the broadcast. Well, let's talk about it now. Been seeing a lot of slipping and sliding here at Atlanta, but why not see some slipping and sliding at Charlotte? June 10th, we are taking our second charity race of the year to Charlotte for the Gen 4 Cup cars for 600 miles, 400 laps. This is going to be a good one, and Trevor, I'm so proud of seeing how the community has come together for this event. We have already have over 25 drivers signed up. If you want to be a part of this event, better get your spot quickly, because the day is coming here closely when we're going to be closing off the applications for drivers to race.
2 weeks left to go, and already 25 drivers signed up. A couple, a handful of spots left available. Get in. It's going to be a lot of fun, and for such a great cause too. Definitely appreciate Gamers Outreach and everything they do. And Sam, I'm so happy to be taking part as a driver this time around, and can't wait for that event. It's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of definitely going to be worn out by the end of the night. Going to make sure I have a gallon jug of water with me throughout that race, because I'm probably going to need it.
Yeah, I was actually racing with some of the guys who, for the WSSR, they're moving over for Season 7 to Wednesday nights, moving to the Gen 4 Cup cars, they had a race where they were trying to get a recruitment race for more drivers to join WSSR for Season 7. They were running the Gen 4 cars at Las Vegas. They only ran 80 laps, and I was hearing drivers saying they were sweating, they were just feeling tired, fatigued. That's only 80 laps at 1.5 miles of Las Vegas. They're heading to a different track, but 400 laps. I could not imagine the physical fatigue some of these drivers are going to feel, especially yourself, Trevor. I'm excited to see how you're going to perform on that cheerleader race again. Gamer Outreach 600 at Charlotte. June 10th is the day. And you can see here in our chat, we got the link to our Tiltify. That is directly the link to donate, to be a part to help out the charity. If you want to just donate and help out a great cause, you can. Otherwise, if you'd like to race, you can donate. $5 is the minimum that you have to do to be applied to race. And then if you cannot donate for money, if that's just not possible, just sharing this event would be a massive thank you and help to those that we're trying to help moving forward. But gosh, Trevor, I cannot wait to see how these drivers can handle June 10th.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I'm going to make sure that I have the air conditioner turned down very low and maybe an extra fan just to stay cool so we're not sweating as bad. But definitely going to be such a fun event, and it's going to be a handful. 400 laps, 600 miles in that car. I mean, we've seen these guys slipping and sliding all night long, and we think these are a handful. That Gen 4 car is a handful, and at Charlotte, it's going to be definitely equally a handful. But Sam, I got to say, Zach Hall continuing to chip away. 2 seconds now, the gap, 20 laps to go, or 22 laps to go. He's closing in slowly but surely. Is he going to have enough time to catch him?
Yeah, I think it's kind of turned into 20 laps to go. Brian Johnson might be a little bit too far back to get closer for the lead, as he's 5.3 seconds back from our leader. Zach Hall is the closest driver with an opportunity, because if he continues to gain at least a 10th per lap on Larry Yingling, with being less than 2 seconds off of that driver, at that rate, he could be right on the back bumper with 3 laps to go. But we've been watching the times, how they've been changing and evolving. We're starting to see that major plateau of when the tires equal out. Zach, just a 3-lap difference on Larry Yingling, but he might have overused the tires just a little bit. But there's issues in front of Zach Hall, as it is the 25 of James Kaufman. Major issues for the 25 machine, as he's going to be heading to pit road. Another broken toe length for the 25 machine, and he almost wiped out that of the 42.
Yeah, just got loose out of turn number 2, overcorrected back into the outside wall, and almost right there in front of Zach Hall. So probably a little bit of a scare for Zach, and almost a caution there, Sam. And that could have changed up everything, but Kaufman gets it off track down pit road, and again, just I think Zach might need that caution to catch up to Larry to have something for him. And thinking of it points-wise, I think Larry's going to have a point led for, obviously he gets a point for leading a lap. I think he'll have one for leading the most laps. But if Zach can get past him, lead a lap and win, I mean, that just negates, 2 points there. So that equals out. I think he'd get 1 point gained on Larry for finishing ahead of him. So, I mean, he would only come out plus 1 point to Larry if he can get by him and win this race.
With how close the points are, that 1 point can be so crucial. Instead of being at this point, if the drivers finish on where they're at now, Zach Hall would be 7, maybe even 8 points off of Larry Yingling. And for Zach Hall, if he was able to make that swap up, instead of losing 4 points, gaining just a point, you'd be just 4 points off of Larry going into next week. So big swing ups on how the points could be, because gaining just 1 point to losing 4 is a difference of fighting for a championship next week and just banking on a miracle heading to Homestead.
Yeah, because I mean, if he gets the win here tonight, goes into Homestead 4 points out, he could theoretically lead a lap, lead the most laps, and win the race. 3 bonus points. He would only need to finish 1 spot, 2 spots ahead of Larry to win a championship next week at Homestead. And that's possible to do, but you go into Homestead 8 points back, you're looking to not only, lead a lap, lead the most, and win, but you're hoping that the 67 has some type of issue that takes him out, puts him, down there in 10th, maybe 15th position. And I just don't see that from Larry Yingling. He's been so consistent throughout this chase format.
He has been consistent, but at this moment, it is Larry Yingling that is trying to find his way, getting by lap traffic. as he's got Rich Jameson in front of him. A little bit of dirty air. James Ackworth Jr. putting the pressure on Zach Hall back in second position. So both dealing with some lap cars and the lap traffic, giving a little bit of factors on what's hurting or helping these drivers, as Zach Hall's going to be passed by James Ackworth Jr. and going to have a major slip up out of the exit turn 2, and that throws away any chances, I think, there, Trevor, for Zach Hall, because he just lost 2-3 tenths because that slide out of 2.
Yeah, I mean, he was running that last time by with both of them dealing with traffic. Oh, there's a big slide from somebody in front. I think that was Jameson in front of Larry Yingling. He goes through the grass but hangs on to it. But for Zach, I mean, he ran that previous lap about the same time as Larry Yingling, and with that slide, they're about a tenth slower than Larry. So all that time he gained up, just lost a tenth to it. Now almost back to a 2-second gap between the 67 and 42.
Our leaders are seeing lap cars having some issues. Zach got to see James Kaufman having his issues. Larry Yingling got to see in his mirror. Rich Jameson going through the grass, having a slip down with Zach Hall, trying to find the best opening, and the timing just wasn't there on making the pass, cleaning up the exit of turn 4. Instead, it's going to be on the entry of turn 1. 13 laps to go. The gap, 1.8 seconds. It's looking good for Larry Yingling to get his 3rd win in the playoffs out of 4 races. Almost swept with the win back at Iowa. The way that it ran down just wasn't there for Larry to continue his sweeping, but we talked about it when he first joined back in Texas. A learning phase for Larry Yingling, who never raced in these cars at the start of the season. His 67 is just wicked fast. As he learns, he gets faster and faster. We knew once the playoffs came around, Larry was going to be a factor, but I don't think we expected him to be this big of a factor in the playoffs.
And you win 2 out of the first 3 chase races, and then having a good shot at it here tonight. Looking at the times, almost a tenth quicker than Zach Hall, starting to pull away from that 42 machine. I mean, you go 3 for 4 out of the 5 playoff races. I mean, who would have thought that was going to happen from Larry? I mean, considering Sam, he set out for 2 seasons. This is a brand new car that he didn't get into until that Texas race and finished in the top 5, and then won that of 2 weeks later at Nashville. I mean, it did not take him long to get adjusted to this car, and you can just see it as we've gotten into this chase playoff how comfortable he is in this car.
The battle originally was the thought that a lot of these drivers like Vincent Sora has been dominating. He's been the big favorite. He won the last 2 championships. We need a major threat to maybe challenge the kid. And everyone thought, hey, maybe Larry, bring back the original 2-time champ who has been consistent and has had one of the longest top 10 runs out of anyone. When he came into this season, he had a career of finishing in the top 10 for every single race. It got broken this season after some complications, but the 67 has just found his groove, has found the speed, and with Vincent Sora not being able to run in the playoffs, it kind of gifted that of Larry Yingling. He now is in the position to become the first ever WSSR 3-time champion in 6 seasons. What a stat and what a statement the 67 could have here tonight.
Yeah, becoming the first 3-time champ in the season. And, you know, it's kind of a tale of 2 different seasons. If you think about it, what could be for Larry and what could have been for Zach Hall. Zach Hall with the chance to get his first championship, Larry going for his 3rd. And it just all comes down to these last 5 races, 4 races actually. You know, that's kind of spun the story around from what could have been to what most likely will be for Larry.
As Zach Hall having some issues, the last lap losing time to Larry Yingling. It's now built back up to over 2 seconds. 8 laps to go. Christopher Norris now in front of Larry Yingling is 38. Trying his best to not go another lap down. He's already 2, about to be 3. 67 continues to hit his mark and even running faster laps than Brian Johnson is Larry Yingling. We were looking at the runs and the way that the 67 was pacing himself. I think that could be the major difference between Larry and Zach on these 2 green flag pit stops and 2 stints we got to see. Was the difference on how you set the tone at the beginnings of these runs, because Larry pitted early, really conserved on his tires, while Zach, on the other hand, very aggressive at the start of these runs.
Yeah, I think Zach just went a little bit too hard too early. to try to close in that gap on Larry, and it's really starting to we're really starting to see the difference in the two strategies of it. Is Zach's now fallen to almost 2.5 seconds, almost 3 seconds back from Larry over the last couple of laps, and it's so hard as a driver to not push hard at the start of a run, especially on fresh tires, to try to close that gap. It's such a balancing act, and Larry again just doing it to perfection as he continues to pull away from that 42 machine.
Now, I know the drivers hate when we bring this up, but if we're going to see a caution, it could be wandering around 6th place. We got a group of drivers on top of one another. Cedric Hunter, Eric Krolick, Brandon Colley, as well as lap cars of James Kaufman, all on top of one another. Colley trying to hold for position as Krolick on the outside for the 01. But with 5 laps to go, these drivers are not leaving anything left on the table. They are scrapping for it with 5 laps to go. Every position so crucial for each point for these drivers. They do not want to be last in their points. They want to show out and prove, hey, maybe we're not running for a championship, but I want to have the better point standings at the end of this playoffs.
Yeah, there's no giving anymore. It's all taken. There was a little bit of contact between Brandon Colley and Aaron Krolick that last time through 3 and 4, but Colley clear now going after the 13 of Cedric Hunter, who tried the one stop, just didn't work out for him, decided to make an audible call, and Brandon Colley on a 1 lap fresher tires than that of Cedric Hunter, going to try to go to his inside, and it's going to be a battle now side by side for that of 6th and 7th, and Cedric going to try to hold on the outside line, but Colley with a better drive off on the bottom is going to clear the 13 machine and drive right on by down the back straightaway.
And Colley's not done just yet. He's going to be trying to run down Ryan Bird. And for Colley, we talked about Zach maybe got a little bit too aggressive on his tires stint. Colley, on the other hand, what an evolution for himself as Ryan Bird forced to go into pit road for the 49.
Interesting from Ryan to come down pit road. I don't know. Doesn't
sounds like fuel. The way that his fuel system set up, it gave him not enough fuel to take it to the end. The 49 forced to pit road.
The auto fuel feature. So a new feature in iRacing for I believe all series, auto fuel. So it automatically calculates how much fuel to put in the car to make it to the end, and sometimes doesn't calculate right. So for Ryan Bird, had to come down pit road for an extra pit stop here and question, could this have happened could this be an issue for maybe Larry, Zach, Brian, Tom? Anybody in our top 5, or are they going to be good as Larry's going to get the white flag here?
It's your Roasted Gems Coffee white flag. Go use promo code WSSR for 5% off on getting your quality premium coffee today. Larry Yingling trying to go for another win, which would take the top board of that of 4th win of the season. He's trying to catch up to Vincent Sora, who has 5 wins this season. But tonight was a masterclass. Picked the right time, the undercut, the strategy to get him into victory lane. Larry Yingling, 4th race of the playoffs, his 3rd win of the playoffs, and he is setting sail with the biggest gap that you could ask for heading into Homestead. Watch out, the 2-time, trying to become a 3-time next week.
I mean, doing everything he needed to do here tonight. Sam was quick on the long run, played the pit strategy perfectly. Got out there in the clean air in front of Zach, was able to just hold on and pull away there at the end. Zach with a little congratulatory bump. But Zach great recovery run for himself after the issues that we've seen him have over the last 3 weeks, able to come home with a 2nd place finish. So, that's got to feel a little bit, good for Zach. I'm sure he's not going to be, all that happy about it, but a good finish for him. And then Brian Johnson, who came into tonight 3 points behind Larry, going to come home 3rd. So he's going to end up losing, I think, 3 points to, or maybe a little bit more to Larry. So Larry's going to be looking pretty good when we get to Homestead next weekend.
And want to give a report on a driver that we thought was going to finish in 5th of Colley. Colley as well, the auto fuel struck the 1 machine. He ran out of fuel off the exit of turn 2 and fell back to 7th on the finish. So drivers may have to think about fuel strategy runs heading into next week, but Larry Yingling in the 67, not a worry. He gets to burn it down here tonight as we will step aside when we come back. We're going to talk to our top 3 Spotlight driver. Congratulations on Larry Yingling on another win this season, as we will be right back for the post-race show. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the WSSR Rosa Gems Cup Series post-race show for the playoffs, Season 6, race number 4 of 5 in the playoffs, and it goes to Larry Yingling in the 67. What a race! Let's get our thoughts from our race winner here this evening as we head to victory lane. Larry, it's Sam and Trevor up in the booth. Congratulations on another win in the playoffs. You build your gap even more heading into Homestead. How are you feeling after this one?
Oh, really good. The practice I did, I just really thought I was going to be really off pace. I kept getting smoked anytime trying to get fast laps, and so I was really trying to limit all my damages this week and go to Homestead, but it all worked out.
I mean, Larry, walk us through your pit strategy call. You were you were the first driver of our leaders both times to come down pit road. I mean, was there any strategy behind that, or were you just trying to break it up evenly, the two stop evenly throughout the course of the night?
I guess you can say there's a strategy. I knew it was 2 stops, but I knew at the end of the first run at least I was faster than Brian, and it took me the entire fuel run. I mean, you can go like 17 or 20 something more laps than what I did, but I knew I had to get out in front of him. I didn't know he and Zach would stay out for another, I don't know, 10 laps, and they caught me pretty quick. But then I knew the second run that they knew I pitted before them, and they were close enough to pit before me and undercut me. So I knew once Zach got to about 1.5 behind me, I had to pit.
I mean, Larry, this has been an incredible season to watch you grow from really not knowing this car to now looking like the most dominant driver out in this vehicle. How is that for you feeling wise? Like you said, trying to figure out how to get fast laps throughout the week, but from when you first started back at Texas to now, how are you feeling with your development with this vehicle?
Oh, I feel pretty good. I still don't like the car or tires, but definitely in the past few weeks, I've definitely whatever wires in my brain that wasn't connected. Once playoffs started, they connected, and it just felt pretty good in the race.
Well, Larry, it was incredible to watch how much you dominated here tonight. And before we let you go, the floor is now yours for any shout-outs.
And definitely shout out all my teammates, whether in the race or throughout the week practicing. Brandon Cawley, Cedric Hunter, Christopher Norris, Bob Skinner, James Highcourt Jr., Ray Rittenauer, and Kevin Hash. And shout out to James, Carolyn, Deondrick, and all you guys at Freaky Fast for putting on the broadcast. And for my sponsors, and if you enjoy the hobby of collecting cards, be sure to check out Muffin Sports Cards and Port City Cards on Instagram. And on the Homestead, I suppose.
That is our next destination. Congratulations, Larry, on another win in the playoffs, and good luck on trying to capture that 3rd championship next week.
Thank you, sir.
As we go from victory lane, let's head down to 2nd place for a driver that had a great run here this evening. The numbers just didn't line up for him to get to victory lane, but still 2nd place. We got Zach Hall with us. Zach, it's Sam and Trevor up in the booth. You come away 2nd, but the way that this race has developed throughout the night, how are you feeling with a 2nd place finish?
I feel good. We had a good run. Like, there was points in the race where I felt like, man, I might have a shot at this thing. I think the first run there, it kind of got away. I was running those guys down. Larry did the undercut, which looking back at, that was totally the right call to make. So I got to give him credit for, risking it to be the first person to pit there. And I was kind of hoping Brian would pit like the next couple laps so I could lead a lap, because I was just looking for that bonus point, and he just didn't pit. So he kept running laps, and I got to his inside, and I was like, I mean, maybe I can lead a lap here, but we're just going to run slower, running side by side. So I decided to come down that lap. Then I saw the gap, and I didn't get into pit road that good that time. I will say I had a pretty big mishap there, just kind of misjudged it by being side by side with him, and I think I gave up a little bit of time right there. But other than that, I mean, it was a good race overall for me. I think I actually just got a direct drive wheel this week on Thursday, and I've been kind of learning it, and I think it helped a ton. I mean, it felt good. I felt like I could feel a little more few things out there. So things look good. I mean, the points game was not good because Larry's just on a roll. I mean, you got to give him all the credit in the world. The dude's a robot when it comes to playoffs. So, congrats to him, and still a good run. I'm just glad to finish where we've actually ran, unlike the last 2 weeks.
I mean, Zach, it looks like you're going to go into Homestead next week. Eight points, I believe, back from Larry. I mean, is there anything you can do, or any ideas of what you might do going next week into Homestead?
I mean, we're just going to try to go out and win. I can't worry about Larry. He's got a huge lead there. I mean, I look back to New Hampshire. I had an 8-point gap going into that race, and I lost it in one race. So it is possible to happen. It's not the likeliest with how he's been lately. He's just turned it up to another level. I think when he sees that championship on the line, he really knows how to get it done. And I've kind of cracked under the pressure the last few weeks. So, I'm just going to try to close it out strong here and try to make sure I got momentum heading into season 7. And whatever happens. I mean, it's going to be close between me and Brian, it looks like, for a second if we don't get Larry. So, I mean, at the end of the day, all I can do is go and worry about myself. And I think Homestead's a good track for me. So,
Well, we're excited to see how you're going to perform next week, Zach. But before we let you go, the floor is now yours for any shout-outs.
yeah, congrats to Larry first off. Great race run by him. Really smart strategy to run pit at that time. I kind of wish I would have came down with him, but congrats to him. He's a heck of a competitor, man. He really turns it up, like I said, when it gets down to the end of these things. Also, it's fun racing with Brian, Tom, all the guys out there. So thank you to everybody out there who I raced with and raced me really clean out there. Was definitely a good step this week for that. And then also shout out to our sponsors, Trophy Smack and Roasted Gems Coffee. It's also cool. We announced today at Roasted Gems coming back as a title sponsor for season 7. So thank you to Roasted Gems Coffee for being a huge support team here for us, and always willing to support WSSR. So thank you to them. And then last but not least, shout out to you guys up in the booth for all the work y'all do. And can't wait to go back and watch this and just see how it played out from the outside perspective.
Certainly was an interesting race. Zach, congratulations on second, and good luck next week at Homestead.
Thank you, guys. And also thank you to our military services out there for Memorial Day. It was definitely a special race to run.
Well, that's going to be the 42 with Zach Hall coming away in second place. Let's head from down to third position. We got the Trophy Smack Machine. That is going to be Brian Johnson. Brian, it's Sam and Trevor up in the booth. You come away third. Still a great performance on yourself. Got to lead some laps. Got to be up front, but coming away third place. How are you feeling after your performance here this evening?
Pretty terrible. Lost points to Larry, so that's not good heading into the final race. Needed to pick up a couple points tonight to have a shot, because you can't make mistakes when you're racing Larry Yingling. So the strategy tonight was a big mistake on my part. So gonna be tough to get 4 or 5 points on him next week at Homestead. So yeah, just when he pulled up beside me in that first run and then short pitted me, that's pretty much what won him the race. Because I figured going long, maybe have a shot on the next run if it goes green, which it did. To try to catch him having 10 lap pressure tires, but in these cars it doesn't even matter. The dirty air is too bad. I caught Zach, and then once I got behind Zach, there was no chance. So you know but at that point I kind of made my bed. Now I had to lay in it, so I had to do the same thing the next pit stop, is go long and hope for something to happen, but it just never did. These cars, they put you in such a box. And with the tires the way they are, short pitting is pretty powerful. So um when Larry short pitted me that first run, then that's pretty much when he won the race, because there was no chance after that unless we got a caution.
I mean, Brian, what's the mindset, the game plan going into the championship race next week at Homestead, knowing that you're going to be, 4 or 5 points back from Larry going into that race?
Well, I mean, essentially, got to go in and win, but even that's not going to be enough if Larry gets a top 5, or if he finishes 6th, 7th, and leads a lap. So tonight was the night when we were gonna count points and try to, like I said, at least be 1 or 2 points behind him. And then next week winning the race could definitely win me the championship. But now I'm gonna have to win that race, lead the most laps, and hope Larry has a terrible performance, which that's not gonna happen. Larry's too strong of a driver for that to happen. So they got to do the best I can, and like I said, just go out there and win the race. But it's still not it might not be enough.
It may not be enough, but still a strong performance here this evening and in the playoffs, Brian. Before we let you officially go, though, the floor is now yours for any shout-outs.
Definitely got to thank you guys for putting on a great show as always. Everybody that tuned in, and all our league drivers and the league admins, and then it's Memorial Day weekend, so definitely got to give a shout out to everybody in the military and our first responders as well. Can't have what we got without them, and they do the things they do so that everybody else doesn't have to. So definitely give a shout out to them, and on to next week. That's all I got.
Well, that is going to be the 28 machine of Brian Johnson coming away third. Congratulations on a good finish. And I know it's a pretty big mountain to climb, but good luck next week on trying to go for that championship.
Thank you, sir.
Well, from third place, let's head down to fifth place. We got a driver that had to call an audible move, but came away with a pretty decent finish, even with that change. Cedric Hunter in the 13 with us. Cedric, you come away fifth. You had to make an audible move. It looked like you were aiming for the one stop. Didn't work out as planned. But man, how are you feeling coming away with fifth?
I mean, it's definitely a recovery. I think that we put ourselves in a bad position with our strategy. We had decent pace in the opening stint. I think I could have probably shot for maybe a top 3 finish, if I matched the same strategy as they did. I think the pace was there, but I kind of shot myself in the foot with the first 2 races, having a speeding penalty, and then I guess self-spinning, wrecking, whatever at New Hampshire, and then having VR problems the week after. So this is the first race I've basically been able to go mistake free, other than just the strategy call. So to get a top 5 feels good. I kind of went for the Hail Mary one stop at the beginning, just to I have nothing to lose, I guess, and hopefully I can at least get a win. And that's kind of what my mentality was at. And once I pitted, I realized, well, I'm just way too far back, and because of the caution, I was able to save a little bit more fuel than I typically would under green. I figured the chances, I guess, of having another caution with only I think we were like 14, 15 guys at the end there, so was probably not gonna be very high. We've had so many green races the whole season, so realized, I was probably gonna finish a lap down, so I said, I'm just gonna go all out and try and make up all the time that I lost. And we got very fortunate with 2 guys pretty much on the last 5 laps, directly in front of us, running out of fuel because of the auto fuel function that iRacing recently added, kind of screwed them over. So we got lucky.
Cedric, what was it like out there tonight throughout the course of the race? We noted earlier that the track temp was really hot at 128, but how was the car driving? We saw a lot of slipping and sliding out there, but what was your sensation throughout the course of the night?
It was, I think, for the most part, everybody had to manage the right rear tires and just having to worry about it getting loose off the corners. And so, I was trying to compensate that, obviously, with throttle control on exits, and I didn't see, I guess, too much right front wear. So I was really trying to just be aggressive on entry and through the center, and maximize, I guess, the lap times just overall. I think in the last run, I was trying to run down Ryan Bird. I definitely burnt off kind of all my tires, which allowed Collie to pass us. And then again, thankfully, they ran out of fuel for me. So, but I think that the biggest thing that we had to watch out for tonight was just getting loose on exits. I had one massive moment, I think, with maybe 20 laps to go, where I just completely lost it off of 2 and had to chase it the entire backstretch. So that was fun. It was definitely butt clincher, and yeah.
Well, Cedric, it was an incredible finish in recovery for yourself, again, with the change of the strategy in the moment. A great recovery for yourself. And before we let you go, the floor is now yours for any shout-outs.
Yeah, man, I appreciate it. I want to give you guys a shout-out. I haven't done that in a while, and I haven't had the opportunity to talk to you guys in, maybe 2-3 months. So it's finally good to be back in the booth. Unfortunately, it wasn't with a podium, but hopefully we can do that next week. Again, nothing to gain, nothing to lose, so I'm just going to go out there. Thankfully, it's one of my better tracks, so hopefully I can go out there and do what I do at that track and get a win. other than that, man, I want to give a huge shout out to the guys that showed up tonight. I know for the most part they're playoff guys, but there's a couple non-playoff guys, and I know it's not always tempting to show up to races when you don't really have anything to race for. So I appreciate everybody for showing up, everybody for tuning in to the broadcast. I was hoping that we were going to get multiple cautions this race, but unfortunately we only got the one at the very beginning. And then the field got really spread out, and I know it's not the most entertaining product to put out there, but I guess that's where the transition towards next season is going to come in, where we're going switching to Wednesday night, switching to a different car, something that's going to be more more difficult to drive and kind of a driver's car, if you will, where you're really going to have to get up on the wheel and manhandle it. So we're probably going to see a lot more action here on Wednesdays starting July 5th for our next season. So definitely tune in, everybody, for that. It's going to be on Freaky Fast Racing. Thank you to Robert and the team for coming back with us for another season. As always, I mean, we love and appreciate everything that you guys do for us. I also want to thank our sponsors. As Zach said just a couple of minutes ago, Roasted Gems Coffee is coming back for another season, so their 4th consecutive for WSSR here. So as always, if you guys want delicious products such as coffee or even merch, they have really nice merch that they're releasing on a pretty consistent basis. Check out roastedgems.com and use code WSSR Cup for a discount, at the completion of your purchase. So thank you to them. Thank you to Trophy Smack and all the sponsors that make the season go round.
As that will be the 13 machine of Cedric Hunter. Cedric, congratulations on 5th, and good luck at Homestead next week.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Well, as we go from our interviews, let's take a look at where the drivers finished out here this evening. As for that of Atlanta, had just one caution, and it took us to the end after that. It was a quick one on lap 2. Got a couple of drivers out of the race. Few had to deal with damages all the way through the run. But it's Larry Yingling came into the night with the lead in points and able to extend it heading into Homestead next week. The 6-7 gets the win. Zach Hall in 2nd, Brian Johnson 3rd, Tom Sinchek 4th. That is your top 4 in points, staying in the top 4. There's not a lot of movement on points. It's really on those bonus points on what you can grab. 5th, going to be Cedric Hunter. 6th is Eric Kralik. Brandon Colley ran out of fuel, but at least survived for 7th. With Rich Jameson 8th. 9th is Mark Morales. And finishing out our top 10, Bob Skinner in the 82 machine.
Yeah, Bob Skinner, Mark Morales, both having top 10 runs, so good for them on having good finishes tonight. Christopher Norris never really got to see what that 38 machine was going to have for us tonight after he got caught up in that lap 2 incident. Ryan Bird, after the issue with the auto fuel, goes from a potential top 5 to 13th position. James Kaufman got into the wall a couple of times. He's down there in 14th. Richard Wolfsfer, I mean, we saw him stand up there battling for 3rd at one point before he had a couple of issues that put him out of the race in 15th. And then, Jeff Gilmore, Jonathan Cogswell, we both had their issues. Cogswell, the one that brought out the first caution there on lap 2, finished down there in 16th and 17th. But overall, I mean, what a race we had here tonight. Stayed green after that lap 2 caution. Got to see all the strategies play out, and Larry continuing to do what Larry's done throughout this course of the playoff run, and that's win a race.
3 wins out of 4 playoff races so far, in our last playoff race next week at Homestead for 167 laps, more action, and a chance to crown a champion. Larry's going for his 3rd championship, Ryan's going for his 2nd, and Zach Hall aiming for his 1st. A lot of drivers in the mix, but it's really came down to those 3 drivers that have the best opportunity to win the championship. I can't wait for it, Trevor. Certainly should be a good one, but this format, the chase format, where it's all about the most points you can gain in 5 races, the consistency is shown. Larry is certainly the driver to watch out for.
Definitely gonna be the driver to watch out for, and definitely the driver that we've had to watch out for. And going into next week, I think he's gonna be sitting in a really good spot. Just needs a good solid top 3 finish for himself to secure that 3rd championship. But we're going to Homestead, Sam, and it's a track that a lot of drivers love. A really racy track, actually has multiple groove racing, so we might be in for a good show next week at Homestead. But it's going to be interesting to see what Zach Hall and Brian Johnson bring to the table next week to try to upset Larry Yingling and get their championships.
And now wait for it. Well, usually we would say, hey, we got other broadcasts to give you throughout the week before our next one here for the WSSR. Well, that is not the case this week, as it's Memorial Weekend. Tuesday for the Full Send Racing Series are taking Tuesday off. Their championship race will be a week after. But for the WSSR, their next destination is next week, Homestead, the last race of the season. Who will be crowned the Season 6 champion? We'll have to find out then. But for this weekend, thank you so much again. This is Memorial Weekend. Big shout out to all of our veterans and first responders. Thank you so much to everyone that has served and is serving currently. And we want to give a big shout out to all of those. And for this week, thank you for watching Freaky Fast Broadcasting. We will see you Saturday night. That will be your next Freaky Fast Broadcast. And for myself, Sam Dyer, Trevor Earhart, Robert Moyer, and everyone else here at Freaky Fast Broadcasting, thank you for joining up with us. We'll see you Championship Racing at Miami next week for our next Freaky Fast Broadcast.